Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Sweden and we're going to return to a brewery that has featured on the channel a number of times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the last 2 or 3 years, and I always keep an eye out for the different things that they're releasing, and this is another one of their latest releases, and I think this one should be pretty good actually. So for this review then, we are going to head to Gothenburg, Göteborg as you would say in Swedish, the Swedish craft beer capital up there on the west coast. Got to get that Gothenburg catchphrase in when we're reviewing Gothenburg beers because it is just a bit of a channel tradition these days. And for this one, we are going to return to the wonderful Spike Brewery. So the beer we're looking at today is called Untappd Galaxy. It comes in at 6.5% ABV, and this one is a single hop Galaxy New England Hazy, whatever you want to call it, IPA. So yeah, this beer was released as part of the Lokal Småskaligt assortment through Systembolaget here in Sweden for February of 2021. The last IPA that I had from these guys, I think, was the Cold as Ice, if I remember the name rightly. That was a double IPA. Before that it was the Super Sharpshooter, and then a couple of months before that I think it was the Monopoly, which was a very, very nice one as well actually. But these guys, when it comes to Spike Brewery, I would say that this brewery mainly excel when it comes to hazy New England IPAs. Their Imperial Stouts are pretty good, and recently they've been doing quite a few nice black IPAs as well, and there's 1 or 2 sour beers starting to come out of this brewery as well. But when it comes to Gothenburg beer, Spike Brewery are doing some very good stuff. The standard of beer within Gothenburg is very, very high, so definitely check these guys out if you find yourself in the city of Gothenburg. I'm not sure how widely exported their beers are these days, but when it comes to Swedish beer, these guys do rank pretty high in my opinion, so I always keep an eye out for the new things that they're releasing. But yeah, definitely curious to see how this one turns out. Hopefully this is the first in a series of single hop IPAs that these guys start to do, because they are very, very capable when it comes to this style. But I've been a big fan of the Galaxy hop for quite a wee while. An Australian hop, 14% alpha acid or so if I remember rightly. Lots of big kind of passion fruit and mango flavours and things like that if I remember rightly. So yeah, very, very curious to see how this one turns out. Always nice to return to Spike Brewery, and I think this is going to be one of 2 or 3 reviews that you'll see from Spike Brewery across the month of February 2021. But yeah, the other 2 beers were quite strong, so maybe I'll save those for a little bit later. We'll just need to see. But in the meantime, really looking forward to this one, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer as well. So yeah, as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done are from Spike Brewery before, and you will no doubt see more added to that list in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then to tell you a little bit about Spike Brewery once again. So Spike Brewery, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Gothenburg, Göteborg, up on the Swedish west coast, and the company was founded back in 2014 by Mats Westberg, Marcus Axberg and Martin Johansson. So all 3 of these guys had worked in the IT industry, but now it's only Mats and Marcus out of the original 3 that are still involved in the company. But they now have David de Sursi, who joined the company and became the CEO. But the main brewer is Bernardo Hava. He comes from Brazil, and he trained in brewing at VLB down in Berlin, which is quite a prestigious brewing school actually, and he joined the company back in 2017, which is roughly a couple of months or maybe a year or so before I actually discovered these guys. I'm sure it was around 2018 that I started reviewing beers from Spike Brewery, come to think of it. But at the moment, these guys are producing in the region of 250,000 litres of beer per year, and about 25% of their output goes to contract brewing other breweries' beers. You know, in Gothenburg, there's many gypsy breweries. You know, I think Duck Pond brews some of their beers at Spike Brewery, Bearded Rabbit as well. You know, I think All In Brewing have also brewed at Spike Brewery as well, come to think of it. So yeah, a fair portion of their annual output goes towards contract brewing other breweries' beers. But they're also, as I say, these guys have really made a name for themselves. The brewery itself can be found in the Gamlestaden area of the city. They've got an on-site tap room which opens on Saturdays. It also serves food as well, and I do recommend that you check it out. This building that you'll find the brewery in is actually an old slaughterhouse. So when you go in and sit in the kind of tap room and things like that, there's bullet holes in the walls and all of these kind of things. You can check out my out and about video I did when I went to visit the Spike tap room. You'll find that in the playlist if you go into the channel homepage. But like I say, the tap room opens up every Saturday. You can check it out, but at the moment they're looking to find opportunities to build their own brewery. And as of February 2021, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 100 different kinds of beer, and that number is constantly increasing every month. There's usually 2 or 3 different beers from Spike Brewery released through Systembolaget every month, and I'm not sure if there are others that are only brewed on the very kind of small scale and released in the bar and things like that, but I would suspect that that is the case. There will be a few Spike beers that don't make it into to Systembolaget and things. But like I said, I would consider this brewery very strong when it comes to New England hazy IPAs, imperial stouts, black IPAs they're also very good at as well, and they're starting to produce a few sour beers as well. So keep an eye out for those. But as I say, a kind of fixture these days when it comes to the Gothenburg craft beer scene. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Spike Brewery for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer itself then. I'm really curious to see what this has in store for us. So just a little quick look at the artwork for you there then as well. You can see it's a nice kind of graffiti style that's going on in here. I have to compliment Spike Brewery on the artwork actually. You always get a really interesting variety of different things here. But I hope that this kind of who dat thing, I hope that this is going to be the start of a kind of single hop series of beers from these guys, because they are very, very solid in this style. And I mean, OO Brewing in Gothenburg are the ones who always release the 100 series and the 50/50 series, the single and dual hopped IPAs respectively. So it would be cool to see another brewery kind of getting in on this as well. And Spike Brewery are very capable when it comes to these beers. But like I said to you earlier, 6.5% New England hazy, whatever you want to call it, IPA, 6.5% ABV, single hopped with Galaxy, which is an Australian hop, and from what I remember, 14% alpha acid and lovely big kind of strong passion fruity kind of flavours. But yeah, this is a 440 milliliter can. I think I paid around 45 Swedish kroners for this, so that translates to about just slightly over £4 sterling, €4.50, and maybe somewhere in the region of $5 American, because the dollar is actually quite weak at the moment, come to think of it. But yeah, good price, and as I said, released on the 1st of February 2021 as part of the Lokalt Småskligt assortment in Systembolaget. So yeah, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. 6.5% New England hazy IPA. Very curious about this. So yeah, I mean, it actually feels like quite a little while since I drank a Spike Brewery beer, but in reality it's only been a few weeks. When I was back home in Scotland, I was going through quite a few beers. I was filming quite a lot of reviews because I had my dad there to kind of help me kind of just rattle through things. I drink half of the beer, he drinks half of it, so you can film reviews sort of twice as fast and things, which is great. So it feels like quite a long time actually since I had a Spike Brewing beer, but in reality it's maybe it's only a couple of weeks actually. But yeah, as you can see and as you would expect from a New England IPA, this one's poured a lovely, very rich, what colour would we describe this as? This is quite a rich, kind of almost ambery leaning New England IPA, this one. You can see that there's a solid finger of a frothy, I would say kind of creamy coloured head there, and the level of froth on that. Let me just put that up to the lens there. You can see the level of froth there. Very, very soft looking beer, this one. But yeah, 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of that head there. But I mean, overall, it does look very, very nice. You can see if I put my fingers behind the glass, this beer does have an impressive level of haze to it. Remember, the level of haze in these beers depends on the oat and the wheat content. That varies from brewery to brewery. But theoretically speaking, you know, as you go further up the alcohol scale, you should have more haze, but that's not always the case. But the colour of the beer is dependent on, one, the type of malts that you use, two, the length of the boil. The longer that you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, thus you get a darker colour of the beer. But in the first instance, it is dependent on exactly what malt types you use. But I have to say, the level of haze in this beer for a 6.5%er is pretty impressive, actually. So pay attention to that when you actually get a hold of this beer. But in terms of colour, I would say that this one is a very dark kind of yellow, leaning towards a kind of ambery colour, actually. So perhaps it's fair to compare this one to a sort of mixed fruit, tropical fruit juice. I always like comparing these hazy New England IPAs to different kind of tropical fruit juices, because that's just what they remind me of. So yeah, very, very curious to see what this beer has in store for us taste-wise and things. But first off, let's take a little look at the aroma. Nothing overly surprising about this beer in terms of its appearance when you consider what style it is. So yeah, let's go for it then. Ooh, now that's quite interesting. Straight away with this beer, the malty side of things comes across as being very, very well balanced. As I've told you in other reviews, I find that there's kind of 6 directions to take New England IPAs in. They can be quite yeasty, and they can be quite yeasty and farmhousey. They can be quite wheaty and bitey, oaty and creamy, you know, kind of bready and barley malt leaning. You can also get some kind of grainy rye type ones, and then you can also get the kind of big, you know, kind of brown sugary type ones as well, actually. But this one actually has a little bit of quite a few different things here. I feel like I'm going to sneeze at the moment, so I apologise if I sneeze randomly. But yeah, the malty side of this beer I find quite attractive, in honesty. You know, straight away with this beer, I mean, you can smell you know, the soft white bready notes from the barley malt. You get that right away out of this one. You do get a bit of bitiness from the kind of wheaty side of things, but you also get a wee bit of smoothness from the oats. But I would say it's mainly the wheaty notes and the barley malt softness that's coming out of this. I do think there's a wee bit of a kind of yeasty component to this one, but I would be hesitant to describe it as being kind of woody, farmhousey, grainy. I would hesitate to call this beer farmhousey, actually. But I remember that with spiked beers, you know, they do have a good yeasty component to them as well. But they always turn out to be really nice and kind of smooth and just drinkable. And at 6.5%, you know, that's kind of what you'd expect from this one, in honesty. Yeah, the aroma of this beer, I think, goes together really nicely in that sense. I think the component that really dominates is that soft white bready sort of thing, but you get a wee bit of the kind of wheaty bitiness there at the back, and then the oats kind of sit on top of that, and there are 1 or 2 little kind of grainy elements within the beer as well. So I do really like how this one goes together in that sense. There's a good kind of malty presence to the beer. Do we get any brown sugar out of this one? Yeah, I mean, there's a wee bit of a, there's a little bit of there is a wee bit of that kind of boozy, brown, sugary sort of thing out of this one. You know, you always get this with a little bit of the kind of the alcohol flavours and stuff like that. So there's a wee bit of that kind of boozy, caramelly sort of thing going on. You get a little bit of that Werther's Original butter candy type aroma out of this beer, but that's to be expected. You know, that seems to be a little bit of a mainstay these days when it comes to New England hazy IPAs. But I mean, overall, the malty side of this one, it comes across as quite thick, almost quite creamy in a lot of ways. And the more that I smell of it, the more I think it's quite oaty leaning. But as I say, there's a good wheaty backbone to the beer in a lot of ways as well. So just take a little bit of time and enjoy the aroma of this one before you get stuck into it. On the hoppy side of things then, when it comes to the green component, it's quite bright in a lot of ways. You've got a lovely you do have a lovely big floral aromatic sort of component to the beer. Like I said earlier, Galaxy Australian hop, 14% alpha acid. That is to be expected, to be honest with you. You would expect a big a big 14% alpha. You would expect just a big green component out of this beer. There's a teeny little bit of earthiness in there, some lovely deep but not spicy, just very deep kind of floral aromatic components to the beer. I would say that it's got a wee bit of a kind of zestiness to it as well, which I can really appreciate. So the green component of this beer is quite nice. It's got a good solid backbone to it, this, both from the green component of the hops and the malty side of things. The fruity side of the beer is exactly what you would expect. I mean, you've got a lovely big kind of sort of slightly stronger passion fruity note to this one. You get the big juicy mango notes as well, which is great. And there is just, I mean, there's something else going on there as well. There is a wee bit of a kind of citrusy component to this beer as well, like maybe a sharper like peach, or a peach note. But at the same time, the more that you smell the beer, you do get some of the softer components there as well. So I would say passion fruity, mango. There is like a little bit of a softer kind of apricot-y underbelly to the fruity side of the beer, but definitely a bit of a kind of sharper peachy note, and maybe just a wee bit of a slightly limey zest to it as well, which is quite interesting. So yeah, I've not had a single hop Galaxy beer in quite some time, so I have to say I'm very curious to see how the aroma translates into the flavour. But I have to say the aroma is given a very, very good impression. So take a bit of time to enjoy that before you get stuck in, and we're going to taste this beer now and see how we get on. So this one is the Who Dat Galaxy, 6.5% New England Hazy IPA from Spike Brewery in the Gamlestaden area in Gothenburg here in Sweden. Let's get stuck in. Slange, skål, cheers. That's pretty damn solid, actually. The one thing I always remember about Spike Brewery is that their beers are, quite smooth. And this one, to me, actually comes across as a little bit more oily compared to some of the other ones that I remember. But like I say, it's been a wee while. It feels like a while. Maybe, I think it's been about 2 months or so, actually, since I reviewed an IPA from these guys. So just bear that in mind. But this feels a little bit more oily than I remember some of the other New England IPAs from Spike Brewery. But it's really solidly executed. So yeah, I'm just going to say thumbs up to Spike Brewery on this one. Another very, very well done beer. And I do like the artwork. Does it say who the art comes from? Yeah, the artwork on this one is Ayas1. Let me just put that there. You can look at their Instagram handle and things. So yeah, I have to say the artwork, the graffiti artwork is pretty cool, actually. So yeah, some of these graffiti things that you can see are pretty impressive, actually. But yeah, this is a lovely beer, and you do have to appreciate that about Spike. When it comes to these New England IPAs, they really know what they're doing. Now the main question would be, is this one of the most kind of striking IPAs that I've had from Spike Brewery? Maybe not. I mean, the Super Sharpshooter and the Cold as Ice that I had recently, maybe they sort of struck me a little bit more. But is this a solid New England IPA? Absolutely no doubt about that, yes, it is. Single hop IPAs can always be a little bit tricky, but I think they've pulled off a really solid example of this one here. I mean, the malt base here is, the first impression that I have of this beer is that the malt base is very smooth and very solid in a lot of ways. It plays quite a prominent role in the beer. And I think it's got a really nice balance with what's going on with the hops, actually. So yeah, I'm going to say I like this one. As I say, it's a solid IPA, but perhaps not one of the most striking ones that I've had from Spike Brewing over the last, I think, 3 years or so that I've been reviewing their beers. But I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink it again, actually. And I do look forward to seeing what if they release other beers. It would be cool to see the Who Dat series become, a more kind of regular fixture, actually. But yeah, the Galaxy, I do like that. You can see with the artwork on this one, Galaxy. It would be cool to see them keep this artist on and do the same kind of art style for different releases. And yeah, I think in terms of ingredient education, I really do like trying different beers, you know, different single hop IPAs and stuff like this. So yeah, this beer does have my approval in that sense, and these guys are very capable, so I hope this is a series that they do continue. But yeah, this one, really big and thick malt base in my opinion, and it's got a lovely smoothness to it overall too. So yeah, let's try and break this down for you then. So straight away across the middle of your palate, you can feel that nice, smooth, white bready barley malt sort of base. That goes right across the middle third of your palate. As you move to the border region between middle third and back third of your palate, you can feel there is a wee tiny more grainy, bitey component to the beer. Then in the back third of the palate, you can feel that the wheat starts to take over. You can feel a lot more of that wheaty bitiness in there, and the wheat sort of thickens up the beer in that back third of your palate. Absolutely. That, you know, that starts to kind of dominate a little bit on that back third of your palate. So big sort of wheaty bitiness there, and you can feel coming forward from the very back of your palate, you can feel there's a lovely big sort of thick white bready sort of thing, and as you reach that border region between middle and back third of your palate, the thickness just drops away. So yeah, the beer feels quite thick in the back end of the palate, and there's a fair wee bitiness to the wheaty side of the beer as well. But yeah, in the middle third of your palate, you can feel there's a nice smooth white bready backbone just forming, just sitting there in the middle of the beer. On top of that, you can feel that there's a nice oaty smoothness there, particularly on the front half of that front third of your palate actually, which is quite interesting. And then sitting in the very centre of your palate, there's a good little touch of kind of brown sugar and, you know, Werther's Original type vibe coming out of this beer. So yeah, definitely a wee bit of that kind of slight sweetness in there. I think this beer, as you go further into the aftertaste, it really does sweeten up a little bit. There is a bit of a kind of straight up caramel there in the very middle of your palate, which is quite interesting. But as you move away from the centre of the very centre of that middle third of your palate, it does get a little bit more kind of biscuity, McVitie's digestive-y, but it feels quite butter candy-like at the same time. So it's quite layered in that middle third of your tongue. Soft white bread, smoother oats, then a kind of Werther's Original type thing there, sweet caramel in the middle of your palate, and then, you know, as you move further out from that on top of it, it's got a little bit more of a kind of Werther's Original butter candy type thing. But regardless, it's a very nicely executed beer from the malty side of things in my mind. It feels quite thick actually, and very smooth in that in the middle third of your tongue, I should say. I feel like my brain's not working in reviews these days. Just going a little bit crazy, to be honest. That's how it goes. Being Scottish, genetically crazy. But yeah, the malty side of this beer, I think, is very nicely executed. It in fairness, it does feel a wee bit thicker than some of the other spike beers that I've had from memory, come to think of it. So yeah, maybe worth noting that as well. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things, then I think we've covered the malty side of the beer as much as we really need to. But on the hoppy side of things, in the back corners of the palate, there's a wee touch of earthiness there, not all that much. But very quickly, this beer becomes very big and floral and aromatic, and you can feel that all the way along the sides of the palate here until the front corners of the palate. So this beer for me does have a nice big floral aromatic component. I'm not sure if I'd describe it as spicy, but it really does kind of resonate there, if that makes sense. And when Galaxy is a 14% alpha acid hop, you would kind of expect that, to be honest. But yeah, round the very front curve of the tongue, the beer is a little bit more kind of lighter and grassy in a lot of ways. There's a wee bit of a zesty component in there as well, which I really quite like. So yeah, you've got a wee bit of a lighter kind of grassy sort of note around the front curve of the tongue, but it does have a wee bit of the kind of floral aromatic resinous side of things as well. So yeah, the green component of this beer is actually quite, quite dark, quite floral. Has a little bit of dankness to it, in fairness, as well. But yeah, let's focus on the fruity side of the beer then. On that front third of your palate, as I always say, you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters kind of roll their way out of the beer. Underneath the fruity notes, I would say the oaty kind of smoothness of the beer lingers there as well. There's a wee bit of a kind of bready component also, but on the back, in the border region between middle and front third of your palate, you can feel there's a wee bit of a kind of soft bready thing going on in there as well, which I do also quite enjoy. So yeah, that's another interesting point to note about this beer. But yeah, the fruity side of things, then let's focus on what's going on with these fruity components. So yeah, at the very back of that front third of your tongue, there's a bit of a kind of stronger passion fruity note there. As you move further forward, it's a little bit more sort of mango-like in a lot of ways. Then you start to get a wee bit more of a few other kind of tropical fruits in there. There's definitely a wee bit of a sort of peachy sharpness there. Right in the middle of that front third of your tongue, you can feel that there's a bit of a slightly kind of more peachy, almost citrusy quality to the beer. Peaches actually have this really nice sharpness to them, and I'm getting a lot of peach out of this one, and that's not something I've really noticed with Galaxy before. I've always considered Galaxy to be really kind of strong and passion fruity, but starting to notice in the single hop, in this single hop beer, that it's actually very peachy in a lot of ways, which is very interesting. But yeah, as you reach the kind of front half of that front third of your palate, there's quite a little bit. I do get a good wee kind of citrusy, zesty kind of thing coming out of this one, and maybe a sort of mix of lemon lime in there as well, which is quite interesting. But the very front tip of your tongue, for me, really does feel really zesty in a lot of ways. So that's another thing I guess I can quite appreciate about this beer. Lots of strong passion fruit, good mango-y quality. There's a few kind of papaya, apricot-y sort of undertones to the beer, but I find there's a big peachy component. So I think passion fruit and peach are probably the two kind of competing things going on with this beer. So I do like that about this. I quite like hops that have a bit of a kind of strong character about them. So it's interesting to see Galaxy on its own once again after, it must have been 2 or 3 years ago that I last had a single hop Galaxy beer, come to think of it. So yeah, it's been a nice little learning experience, this beer, I have to say. So thumbs up to Spike Brewery for this one, and I do, as I said earlier, I do hope that this Who Dat series kind of evolves to be a kind of regular thing actually with different hops. Yeah, nicely executed, absolutely. But in terms of the mouthfeel of this beer, I would describe this one as kind of being towards the top end of mid-bodied, bottom end of full-bodied. It does feel like quite a thick New England IPA in a lot of ways. Yeah, quite a thick New England IPA for me. Carbonation is very, very smooth though. You do get a nice bit of oiliness out of this beer. As you go further into the aftertaste. As I've said before, this is a kind of trait with Scandinavian beers. They feel quite clean, but at the same time they can feel quite oily. When it comes to bitterness with this beer, I want to say that this beer has, I think this is a fairly standard 30 IBU, but I wouldn't be surprised if it had like 40 or something in it as well, because it does have a nice little bit of dankness to it, but that might well just be some of the kind of residual properties of the Galaxy hop, because Galaxy, from what I remember, did have quite a bit of dankness to it when I first encountered it. So yeah, I think this one somewhere between 30 and 40 IBUs, kind of standard for the New England IPA these days. I'd love to have a single hop West Coast Galaxy IPA, come to think of it, and just see what the green component of this beer is like a little bit more. Remember, your hop additions are very dependent on whether it's late addition hops or early addition hops. Just bear that in mind. But the malty base of this beer is very smooth, but also very thick. There's a little touch of sweetness in there. You've also got some really nice kind of oily, fruity characters in this beer for me as well, and just a little bit of juiciness. But I mean, overall, it's a very interesting beer, and I think it showcases the Galaxy hop really quite well. So yeah, let's leave that let's leave it at that for this review then, and kind of round off. But yeah, thank you again for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Spike Brewery. These guys do some very, very nice New England IPAs, Imperial Stouts, Black IPAs, and they're starting to do some sours as well. So definitely one of the Swedish breweries that you want to check out. I've enjoyed a lot of the beers I've had from these guys in recent times. I hope this series becomes a little bit of a mainstay with different hops. But yeah, this beer really showcased the Galaxy hop very nicely. A big, thick, oily, oaty leaning New England IPA in my mind. So yeah, well done to Spike Brewery. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Spike Brewery. Check out my social media, check out this brewery, and I will catch you guys soon with another review. This one was the Who Dat Galaxy 6.5% New England Hazy IPA from Spike Brewery in Gothenburg on the west coast here in Sweden. Slanja, skål, cheers.